Well, you're hearing our whole show inside Merchants Corner, but now you're going to hear us outside Merchants Corner because we want to hear more about how it fits into the neighborhood. So the Executive Director of the Community Education Development Association, or CEDA, Jordan Bighorn, is with me to talk more about that. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
So it's hard not to be on Selkirk Avenue and want to ask about the history because it's such a historical part of Winnipeg, this street, the neighborhood. And when I think of Selkirk Avenue back in the day, I think about retail, commerce. I know community social services have been present here, and now, of course, education, as we've been learning. What's the biggest change you would say maybe in the last 5 years that you've noticed in terms of the community and how Merchants fits in?
Yeah, so right here on the corner of Selkirk and Andrews with Merchants Corner behind us, of course we know over the past 5 years with the pandemic taking most of that up, we would have seen most of community residents here who would be used to being on the streets, in the neighborhoods, in each other's homes, visiting businesses and organizations have to move back into their homes for safety. And so the past couple of years have seen us coming back out into community, coming back out into shared businesses, coming back into programming. And I think just getting a felt sense once again of the movement of how beautiful this space is, relations, there's a lot of multi-generational families here. And I think most recently the return of events in the park, the Austin Street Festival most recently, the St. John's Park Festival, where community organizations come out and you'll see residents that maybe you haven't seen in some time that you're related to. Now you're kind of enjoying a hot dog on the street. So,
has the recovery here on Selkirk Avenue post-pandemic been in pace with what we would see in other places, or you're talking about some positives coming out? Where is it still maybe lagging behind where you would say there's room here where we need to grow this now for people?
Yeah, you know, as in any socioeconomic challenged community with particularly housing insecurity and food insecurity, these two still remain such a critical need. In fact, on a weekly basis just across the street here in front of the Elizabeth Fry Society, you'll have folks lining up rain or shine in order to receive hamper and food supports. That wasn't there before the pandemic, and it continues to grow on a weekly basis. The Bear Clan just down the street, who used to provide that, again, was overwhelmed with service at the time and still do good work in the community. But I think also the housing aspect for folks to have this ability to find employment, get into schooling, and then be able to depend on food on the table, that we haven't seen that support kind of come in a way that elsewhere that's happened.
Now inside Merchants Corner, they actually had a cafe for some time, and then there were some challenges with it staying open. When you talk about food and connection, people dropping in, is it your hope that maybe something like that's going to come back? And I can't help noticing too, we used to go to the windmill all the time, the windmill on Selkirk for CBC broadcasts, and that of course was lost. And I think maybe a quicker format pizza spot came up.
Yes.
How important is it that the sit-down cafe connected food places, just to look at that, maybe make a comeback here in a bigger way?
Huge. And just a quick shout out to Erica and Destiny, who were the owners and operators of the Perfect Place Cafe, which they survived opening just before the pandemic, but a small fire that shut down the Merchants Corner for repairs, they just couldn't survive that event. I think there was a sandwich named after our local hero, Mitch Bourbonier, who's well known in the city. It was the Mitch Witch, I think it was called.
I love it.
It was incredible because I think it opened up not only the connection to history of the community through the space of the Merchants Corner, but also residents. So Erica and Destiny grew up in the neighborhood. It was their passion project. They love food, they love community, and they knew everybody who came up and down the street. I think similar to the windmill and other businesses that have been here for some time, that's what they were providing, and we really need to have something like that come back.
Well, we've got a windy day here, but we're going to walk a little bit up Selkirk Avenue and look at some of the other aspects of things, how the Merchants connects and how things can continue to build.
Yeah.
This way?
Okay, let's go.
This way. So we made our way, we're outside of Nadinaway now, which people will know is a youth shelter. And we can walk this way, maybe across the street to the Bell Tower, also another known place people will know on Selkirk. When it comes to, you know, what you do with CEDA and with Merchants, how important is it to make connections? There's our street crossing. How important is it to make connections directly with youth, and how critical are your relationships with the schools? Because there's, I understand, 5 area schools here that you really have partnered with, really intentionally and directly.
Yes, well, with some data that we're aware of from a point of attendance and engagement in local schools, there's an average of about 350 students on an annual basis that are not fully engaged in schools. So we imagine it as a full school of students walking around, not in a traditional classroom. And we don't necessarily consider that they're not learning or they're absent. They are present. They are here. They are learning in different ways. And I think our relationship with schools like Nichimakwa, Children of the Earth High School, which in and of itself was a response to youth saying, we want to go to school, we want to learn, we want to have access to material, but in a way that represents who we are. And to date, I think the Winnipeg School Division has made its best efforts as it can. There's a lot more that could be done in conjunction with community. And so our partnerships that we form, whether it's community organizations, the North End Women's Center is down the way as well, right across the street, that acknowledges that our first educator is our mothers. And so that relationship that needs to be repaired and upheld. But our ability to be in space in schools, so CEDA will have a small classroom space in Children of the Earth this year. The relationship with the principal there to acknowledge students who are coming into school for the first time that they may not have started with grade 9 credits, but they're at a level of comprehension and understanding that needs to be acknowledged by virtue of what they've had to experience growing up in the area here.
Do you get community gatherings here at the bell tower still? Because a lot of people, as you said, will know what that effort was about. Or is that stalled a little bit? And would you like to see it come back? Would that be important for this Selkirk?
I think this is an incredible gathering space. And in fact, the past couple of years with activists, as we know, like Michael Redhead Champagne, would have been the spear point of a North End grad walk.
Whether someone steps up and into what Michael's role was back in the day to lead those community connection, I think they were weekly gatherings at the bell tower.
Every Friday.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, onward. We're at Salter and Selkirk now, and we stopped here because you're going to know where we are. The Robins sign here. Now, this is actually representative of something that's changed in the neighborhood population. This isn't a Robins anymore, Jordan.
Nope, it's a Middle Eastern shop serving donair, different cultural foods, and much like the Lord Selkirk Park developments, which a lot of Indigenous families would live here for decades, and now a lot of newcomer families have moved in. As Mount Carmel Clinic serves a kind of a settlement hub and zone. And so it just shows the growing diversity of our community, but it's predominantly Indigenous families that now get to enjoy donair and shawarma, etc., right in their local neighborhood.
When it comes to actual businesses down here, they come and go, obviously, but would you say that the future of Selkirk Avenue is still going to rely on a lot of businesses still being down here? We talked about food at the beginning, but what about other types of businesses that you would either like to see come up here, or whether you think that you're doing okay with what you have?
Well, in a lot of community meetings, when they talk about different insecurities and kind of whether they're kind of deserts, like financial deserts, food deserts, of not having like a larger grocery store or financial institution other than Median Credit Union, which has always been here since the 70s, they've held strong, that there could be other retail offices here, clothing and stores, etc. But what it has left space for are, as we'll see, like the Upshop, social enterprise, community-driven efforts that allow community members themselves to create business, to have some income, entrepreneurship, but also the relationships that it's kind of buy local in a hyper sense, like really buy local.
The Upshop has been here for, it's one of the longest, I think, probably social enterprises it's been on Selkirk.
Yeah, sometime.
Let's head that way, that's where it is. So we just passed the North End Women's Center, been down here for like 40 years. Their social enterprise is the Upshop. It's now in its 25th year or so. I want to ask you about social enterprises, about services for people that help people. Some people, and you know the criticism of this, would say, is there a threshold where it's administering poverty? What's your response to that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And as I recall from the comment from the late Grand Chief Kathy Merrick, who would have stated in that tough position that the services that are needed to be provided for families and community right now with the funds from government or otherwise are necessary today. There's immediate need, but when it's just drip feeding, when it's not increased in a way that it's effectively a decrease each year, that you're just getting by, you're just not on the verge of starving. So it's in fact malnutrition. And I think, yeah, the argument or the criticism that it being over-programmed, over social serviced, is perhaps a reflection on communities that take that for granted. That by virtue of having all those things already present, you're not even thinking that the safe, warm home, the safe neighborhood, the voice and the wherewithal to say we don't want certain things in our neighborhood, and that's responded to almost immediately. That's not the case here. And so it's the over-programming is just that we want to be able to say we take for granted community safety, community opportunity, places to go and meet and visit and have coffee without risk of being, taken aside by police or otherwise for any other reason. And that's different in other neighborhoods.
Just in my last question then, obviously we start talking education now, we're so much deeper into what community means. Geographically, what's the future of Selkirk Avenue? We have passed up some boarded areas as well and such. Do you see more educational spaces? Do you see more businesses? What do you think the future will hold down here, like practically?
If I were to give a bit of a time capsule thought, it would just be simply that we see the development along Portage Avenue. Selkirk used to be Portage, was Portage. Selkirk and Main there was Portage and Main at one point. Merchants Corner might have been the Radisson or the Fort Garry Hotel at one point. And I think if we do see the rail yards pulled out and the connection of the two streets brought together, not unlike the two-row wampum belt that we know that represents the relationship of Canada and First Peoples, like Selkirk and Portage could be this avenue of the learning, the social enterprise, the community development that happens here is desperately needed in a downtown environment. We see it perhaps with the Jets Stanley Cup run with the whiteout parties. That community is alive and well for a few days. This is where it happens all year on a continual basis.